Hey friend, welcome to Self-Transformed, a podcast redefining self-care through simple fitness, nutrition, and mindset habits. I'm your host, Emily Nichols, certified personal trainer, Whole30 coach, and Taco Tuesday enthusiast. Hey, I know the struggle is real when it comes to taking care of you. I too am a busy working mom who felt physically and emotionally drained until I took action on my own transformation journey. I finally found the solutions to feeling confident and living a healthy lifestyle that doesn't feel hard, and now I'm on a mission to equip you with sustainable tools to help transform your life from the inside out, guilt-free. Together, we will simplify your health and fitness into daily habits that don't feel like another thing on your long to-do list, but daily actions that light you up instead. So if you're ready to redefine self-care and step into your own self-transformation, then let's do this. You're listening to episode 137 of Self-Transformed. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I hope you are doing well. Hope you're staying warm and cozy wherever you are. Here in the Midwest, here in Indiana specifically, we got hit with a bunch of snow and had a couple of snow days with the boys home, which was nice. We went sledding and did a lot of fun outdoor things. They went ice fishing with my husband, which they absolutely had fun and smelled like fish when they came home. But they're living their best life. But your schedule might have been thrown off a little bit. So I want to encourage you to go back and listen to last week's Habit Hack Thursday tip, because this was a question shared from a Self-Transform You client, and it was really perfect timing. But we discussed what to do when your schedule gets thrown off in your routine. So that was a really good episode to go back and listen to, and I hope you really take it to heart. So, speaking of STU, Self-Transform You, my signature 4-week program, the next round starts next Monday, February 14th. Yes, Valentine's Day. What a wonderful gift to give to yourself. Now, listen, I know you're busy. You're buying the Valentines for the kids if they are still allowed to do classroom parties or pass out Valentines. I think my kids have aged out of that now, unfortunately, which makes me kind of sad, but whatever. I'll get them their own Valentines for me and my husband. But I know you're busy trying to coordinate everything. What better gift than to give to yourself? And I know it's really hard to invest in yourself. That's an episode coming up here really soon. But y'all, I am just so proud of everyone's success that has gone through Self-Transform You, because I've seen that light bulb moment go off for them. So if you're like, what is Self-Transform You? What are you talking about, Emily? So like I said, it's my signature 4-week program. So each week, we will go through and customize a health plan for you that will stick. It will stick because we are doing this by utilizing habit strategy. You know, I could geek out talking to you all about habits all the time, being a behavior change specialist and just knowing the power of having some intention by making these healthy choices in your life. That's where they stick versus, oh, I'm going to buy another course or download this new program and I'm going to do it for 1 week and then never do it again. And I'm speaking from personal experience because I have started and stopped so many programs in the past, I cannot tell you. But when I actually started using some habit strategies, the very ones that we talk about in STU, that's when that transformation happened. And that's when it stuck. Okay, that's when it stuck. So the first week we'll talk about that habit formation, the science behind it, how you can easily do that. We'll learn some things about yourself. Then we'll go into my 3-step food freedom plan, talk about meal prepping. We'll talk about joyful movement. I even provide some workouts for you as well. Being a personal trainer and Orange Theory coach, I do like to be able to provide you that extra opportunity to work out together and give you something easy to do at home. And then the final week, we talk about what you do when you lose motivation and life gets in the way. Because that will happen. That's that biggest hill we have to climb up, right? You're going to lose motivation. Life is going to get turned upside down. And that's okay. That's okay. The habit strategies we talk about in ST will help you pivot no matter what season of life you're in. Because as always, as we talk about in this show, you're always going to be in a season of transformation. And I hope I'm giving you the tools to help you continue on that journey. But it's you. That's where the self-transformation comes into play. It's you taking those tools and stepping into that action, which is what we do from the get-go on day one of STU. Just a reminder, this is an online course, but you will have access to me. I'll be sending you weekly texts to help you stay on track, continue some motivation and inspiration. You'll be able to text me back directly, but also we'll have a one-on-one call together, which I can't wait. That's my favorite part, just taking some time to do some habit hacking strategies with my STU girls. And a lot of them this past round added on an additional call to talk at the beginning and then at the end of their program to see where their progress is, or to even troubleshoot, what's going on in their life right now. So, gang, long story short, you can go to selftransformu, it's the letter U.com, to reserve your spot. I only take on so many ladies every month because hashtag self-care for myself too, to make sure I'm not extending myself too thin as well. Or if you want to ask me some questions, you can DM me on Instagram. The easiest way though is to text me. So you can text me at 1-773-904-2157. You can text me the fire emoji if you are on fire for your own transformation, or just text me directly. You'll actually get weekly pump up texts from me as well to help you, regardless if you're doing STU or not, because I know I personally like to get some texts from some folks that I look up to as far as a coaching standpoint goes. Okay, so selftransformu.com, reserve your spot ASAP. I've already had a few girls signed up. I'm so excited for them to begin their journey, and I want you there with us. Okay, so let's get into today's episode. I am always searching and doing research on things. And with this being the month of love, I was exploring the topic of tough love. And I always love finding other podcasters that I would love for you to add to your library to follow in order to have your own transformation, in order to feel inspired as well. So today we're talking about some tough love. Okay, we're talking about tough love, and I have my friend Liz Henderson on the show from the Tough Love Mom podcast to break it all down for us. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Liz. So this is her own words. Liz is a mom, wife, Christian. She's the host of the Tough Love Mom podcast, like I just mentioned, but she is a consistency coach for moms. So we will be talking about consistency today, okay? So she had her own transformation journey that we'll talk about through 2 pregnancies and gaining weight and losing that weight, and the healthy actions, the healthy habits that she incorporated, and what she learned about herself and that transformation over time that she now helps other moms do, especially postpartum moms. So I love this quote from Liz. She said, "I believe that a lot of the messaging in mom culture can overly enable the struggle," right? When really we are so resilient deep down. I mean, moms can change the world, right? Absolutely. So she doesn't beat around the bush because she really cares about moms and their health, not just physical health, but emotional, mental, spiritual, and just really wants to help you be straightforward and call it your strength, okay? She helps you do that, and you're going to help yourself be a little bit more straightforward with yourself as well. Okay, so do you need some tough love this month? This month we're all focused on, we talked about in our workshop, making more time for your partner. We're talking about tough love. There's going to be a couple other love-themed episodes coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So get a pen and paper out. Cozy up. Have a nice little hot cup of coffee, sparkling water. If you're in the shower, get the soap out of your eyes. And let's go enjoy this conversation with Liz Henderson of the Tough Love Mom podcast. Okie dokie, gang. Thank you so much again for tuning in to Self Transformed. I am super excited to have this conversation today and for you all to hear from my friend Liz Henderson of the Tough Love Mom podcast. Liz, thanks so much for coming on this show.
Of course. I'm so glad you invited me on today. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yay, me too. We are talking all things tough love today, which I love that term in itself. But Liz, before we get started, every guest, the first question I ask is, what does self-transform mean to you? What comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
That's a great question. I think for me, when I hear self-transformed, it's that recognizing in yourself that you've changed Because sometimes I think we can go through seasons where we change and we grow or even go backwards and we don't realize it. There's not that
Mm.
awareness. So self transformed, I think, is that recognizing in yourself that you're renewed in a way, that you've changed, that you've grown in your thoughts, in your actions, in your ways. I think it's just that recognition that you're somewhere that you never have been before. You're not where you used to be, and you're in this new place. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. So I think that's what it means
Yeah,
to
I
me, at
love
least.
that. Oh, I love that. Yeah, having that awareness piece, because sometimes I
Mhm.
think we get so busy in like the day to day or checking things off our to do list. It's like, oh man, look how much I've grown or changed and been open to change. And I love that so much. And that's why I ask that question every time because everyone has a different response. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Cool. Well, all right. Well, Liz, can you share a little bit with our audience your own transformation story? So, thinking of where you've been, where you are now, and really what you do and who you are today.
Yeah. So I grew up being an athlete my whole life. I played volleyball all the way through college at West Virginia University. Go Mountaineers. And it's been part of who I am, is being active, being fit, being healthy. And fast forward to 2018, got pregnant with our first child. And during that pregnancy, I stayed active like I always had been. It was just second nature to me. Had the typical first trimester woes, literally could only keep down crackers and clementines. I think that's literally all I ate for a
Oh,
couple
wow.
months there. But my habits weren't horrible when it came to nutrition, like the typical average pregnancy where you indulge in some things and try to eat healthy as you can. And I ended up gaining a lot of weight, mostly in my third trimester. Down the road, figured out it was preeclampsia, which causes a lot of swelling, a lot of edema, water weight. But like literally in the last few weeks, I think I gained about 30 pounds in water weight. So at the end of that pregnancy, I'd gained 90 pounds. And going into pregnancy, I love educating myself on all the seasons I go through, how to be healthy. I just love learning. And I learned so much about pregnancy and birth and even postpartum throughout that first pregnancy. So I figured with the habits that I had and the way I was approaching health in general, that I wouldn't gain that much weight in pregnancy. And I didn't really pay attention to the scale throughout it. It was just at birth, the bed had a scale. And as I was being induced, my husband saw the number. And when I did the math in my head, a few weeks later after having our son, and preeclampsia is not something to mess around with. It is a serious
Mhm.
disease and scary at times, but my son was born healthy. I was fine. After a while, my blood pressures went back to normal. But nonetheless, I had gained 90 pounds when we were having that conversation a few weeks later. And I couldn't even wrap my mind around that, because the way I approached my journey and my health during that pregnancy didn't match up with that. And what I knew in my head about the average amount of weight gain a mom should expect when they're pregnant. And I've come to learn a lot over time of what average really means when it comes to what a mom should expect with weight gain and whatnot. I won't get into that. But once I realized that 90 pounds is there, I was like, okay, I've got some weight to lose, because one, I don't want to get preeclampsia again because I want to have more kids. And I know the weight that you are is a big factor. They don't really know why exactly preeclampsia develops, but weight is a contributing factor and puts you at higher risk. So I was like, I'm going to lose this weight because I don't want to do that again. That was not comfortable. Pregnancy was miserable at the end. I don't want to be induced again. It was just one of those things where I wanted to be healthy long term. So I just put my head down and did what I knew how to do, which was work out and eat better. And over the course of the next 12 months, I lost 80 of those 90 pounds. And that was just simple consistency over time, nothing special, nothing out of this world, just really simple things. And at that 12-month mark, I got pregnant with our second. And I think that transformation journey the first time around was really just learning how to adapt to motherhood, keep up with the habits I knew would serve me. And it didn't go much deeper than that. It was a pretty surface level transformation of weight, but also kind of relearning my body and my routine and I always knew prior to having kids, I mean, Division I volleyball, I did a handful of half Ironmans and a full Ironman before having kids too. I mean, like super big physical feats and accomplishments prior to having kids. It helped me rebuild that confidence that physically I'm capable of what I put my mind to. I can still do things that are hard. I can still do things physically, even though I'm in a totally different place. I didn't recognize my body. And so that's kind of what that first transformation was. And then got pregnant 1 year postpartum. I had actually a completely healthy pregnancy. I attribute that to losing weight. I attribute that to having a little bit healthier habits when it came to food and nutrition. I dealt with some emotional things that I didn't deal with in my first pregnancy. That helped a lot. I think just with stress and no preeclampsia, went into labor on my own. Instead of having a baby at 37 weeks, I had him at almost 42. So really healthy pregnancy, a great labor and delivery. And I had still gained 60 pounds in that pregnancy. So it was kind of another transformation of going, maybe this is just what my body does, no matter what I do during pregnancy. Having boys, I don't know what it is, boys versus girls. I have 2 boys and I gain a lot with them, I guess. Well. I don't know if it's a thing, but I have a lot of moms that are like, yeah, when I had my boys, I gained a lot of weight. I don't know. They're like, well, I'm going to keep you active once I'm born. So you'll burn it off. Don't worry. But
true.
That second transformation, it took me 14 months to lose those 60 pounds and the 10 I had left from my first. And that second time I dove a lot deeper into, okay, how do I know what to do tangibly, but why am I doing this? And how am I making it work? Because I wanted to help other moms figure that out, because we all know what to do to lose weight. We all know it's consistent fitness and eating a little bit better than not, right? Just more often than not. Doesn't need to be perfect, but being intentional with our choices. And I came to realize that there was this underlying issue that dealt with consistency and finding time and just all these issues and the unpredictability that motherhood brings. Those are the things that make that hard postpartum and losing weight. And then all the messaging of, all the messaging that comes along with motherhood. Do this, don't do this. If you're breastfeeding, if you're not, what your body's supposed to look like. There's so many things with motherhood. And the tough love mom got put in my heart I don't know where that came from, except from him. And how tough love is defined really lines up with that. Let's just get clear cut, straight to the point of what you need as a mom to make this happen, to just feel more like yourself again. And so that second postpartum weight loss journey, aside from just doing it for myself to get healthy again, it was really also to help figure out, okay, what is it that moms need to get to the point where they can be where I am, that they can feel like themselves again, that they can feel confident, going out in whatever clothes they're going to wear and not feel like they have to hide certain things or wear I still wear high-waisted leggings, but I wear them because they're comfortable. I don't wear them to like hold in my pooch or anything. It's just this mindset change. So what parts of the mindset need to shift? And that's kind of what I dove into that second time around, because I don't know a mom out there that doesn't struggle postpartum trying to figure out, how do I navigate all this? So I hope that answers your question of what that transformation was.
Oh, I love that. Let me unpack a couple of things that you said that really stood out to me, Liz. I love that you kind of saw that this was kind of like a 2-phase transformation for you as you were coming into motherhood. And, being pregnant and giving birth is like an out-of-body experience, right? Especially when you are like, like you said, oh my goodness, I gained 90 pounds and was like, what? Like, how did this happen? It's just almost like you have to surrender and just let your body do what it naturally, wants to do or whatever while you're pregnant. And my sister-in-law actually had preeclampsia too with my oldest niece, and she had my niece at 10 weeks early. It was bananas. She's healthy, she's great, but yeah, it was such a quick, like within a week, they were like, you got to have the baby. Like it's dangerous for her as well. But then having the baby and being like, okay, what can I do to feel like I'm not having an out of body experience and feel myself in my body again? And then that mindset shift the second time as well. I love that so much. And like you kind of mentioned earlier, just being aware of those changes. I think sometimes we get just so deep into the everyday of being a mom, and it's really freaking tough, especially when you have a newborn, and trying to make time for yourself is a whole nother thing. So I love that you're coming from a perspective of tough love, with your show, because you're right. We all know what to do to be healthy. We know what we're supposed to do to take care of ourselves, but actually doing it and like taking action is a totally different story. So when you say tough love, what does that really mean? Because I think for some folks they're like, yeah, I need some tough love. Or some people are like, oh, I don't know if I want some tough love. So what does that really mean when you think of that?
Yeah, I've heard both sides of that
I'm
too.
sure.
Like, oh, it's
I'm
so
sure.
motivating, or oh, I don't know. I was hesitant to follow you at first because the tough love mom, it sounds like a little too much in the season. And I'm like, no, the way I define tough love, and this is not just my personal definition. I've kind of pulled from different, honestly, dictionaries and pieced it together to apply it to health and fitness. So how I define tough love is love expressed in a straightforward manner to promote another person's well-being. So basically, if you want to put it in another way, is you care enough about someone that you're just going to shoot straight. You're not going to beat around the bush because you want to make sure that they're better in all aspects, mental, physical, emotional. And even though I fully believe I can't change anyone. I can just be here to encourage. I can be here to spur you on, help educate you. But I think tough love's the best way to do it, because when messaging beats around the bush or doesn't get to the point or doesn't call out what needs to be called out in a loving way, because you care, right? That's where it comes from. I'm not going to call people out because I'm this mean person. It's because I care. Like, I've been where you've been. And so that's why the tough love has to come through. And again, we can't change other people. It has to come from within. So part of what I believe is, I'm here to give the tough love that you need, but also teach you how to start tough loving yourself and just shift your mindset and your way of thinking. Again, brings it all back to that awareness of just how your mind is working, what you're thinking, how your thoughts are impacting your behaviors and your choices and your actions and ultimately your habits. Because if we just let our thoughts run free in our mind, anything can happen. I mean, we are not in control of what we do if we're just letting our thoughts go, entertaining things that aren't beneficial or productive for our long-term health, for our day-to-day, for our families. There's so many things that we don't realize we're thinking, and we don't realize that we're taking in and how they're influencing our thoughts. And if we're not conscious of that, if we're not aware of that, it's just going to run free and honestly can have a really negative impact. So that's what tough love means to me and how I apply it in the day-to-day and in my show.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love how you mentioned, like you can receive tough love from like one of your best girlfriends or a coach, but also giving yourself a little tough love. Like, okay, Emily, you know what you're doing is not serving you right now. Let's reevaluate the way we're talking to ourselves. Let's reevaluate the way I'm letting my schedule run my life instead of me running my life. And, that's kind of like where the whole self-transform brand came from. It's kind of like, okay, we can give you tools to help you figure out your own transformation. Okay, I'll try this, try that. But it has to come from you. Like any coach can give you tools to add to your tool belt. But if you're not going to do it and take action for what personally works best for you, then it's pointless. So yeah, I love tough loving yourself. I love that so much, for sure. So cool. Now I know you mentioned you help a lot of postpartum moms, which I wish you were around when my boys were born. My boys are 13 and 10, and I feel like it's always changing, like every year. I said that when they were super little, and I still say it now, like it changes every year as they grow and stuff. But a lot of times, moms then start to try to make time for themselves. They try to find some form of self-care, whether that would just be taking a shower for the day, or whether that would be, handing off the baby to your husband so you could have 30 minutes to yourself to do whatever you needed to do. But I think it's just in our nature as women, as being nurturers, that a lot of times we feel guilty when we try to take time for ourselves. Unfortunately, that's the number one. Time and guilt are the two challenges I hear the most from my community. I'm sure you hear that a lot in your community too, Liz.
All the time.
How do you help women overcome that mom guilt? Because I don't feel like there's a way to completely overcome it, because honestly, it still creeps in for me every once in a while too. But how do you not let it consume you and prevent you from actually taking care of yourself?
Yeah. Oh, and I still feel it too. All the time, almost on a daily basis. I question, why I'm doing it, what I'm doing, and is this worth it? So I think it's something to be encouraged by whoever's listening, that when you feel that mom guilt come up, recognize it. It's a good thing. And there was that quote out there that's like, if you're worried that you're a good mom, then you are one, right?
Yes. Oh, I
If
love
you're
that
feeling
quote.
that mom
Yeah.
guilt, you're a good mom. It's because you want to make sure you're doing the right thing at all times. So, like, recognize that you're feeling that and just say, okay, I feel this mom guilt, and then get logical about it. I like to take the emotion out of things because at the end of the day, things are mostly logical. We can logic with ourselves and go, okay, this is probably being a little ridiculous about this, or maybe a little over the top. I'm letting my emotions get involved, which is okay because we're women and we're more emotional than men. So it is what it is. But what I like to encourage moms to do when they feel that mom guilt, especially early on, those first few years postpartum, is again, recognize it, that you're feeling that way. And then take control of that thought. Just say, okay, why am I feeling this mom guilt? What's causing it? And then step back and take a big picture view, like a wide lens view of what's going on. Because I think we often, especially early on, can get really caught up in the minute details of what's going on, or the immediate circumstance right in front of us, our kids having a meltdown and the baby's crying. And why would I work out right now when everything else is falling apart, and do something for me? Like, that's so selfish. So I think it's best to step back from what's going on right in front of you and take this wide lens view and think about this short-term circumstance versus the long-term benefit of the choices you have to make. Because in a circumstance, like if we're taking this specific example of two kids melting down and you need to work out right now because of your schedule for the rest of the day. I've been there so many times. My oldest is 3. So like he's done almost 1,000 workouts with me over the last 3.5 years. So I've been there probably a couple hundred times, but I like to recognize what's going on. Obviously, he's at the age where I can have a logical conversation with him now, explain why he can be excited about working out with me. If it's a little baby, I'm like, when my ones were little, make sure they're fed, make sure their diapers changed, and go, okay, if we can resolve a little bit of the situation right now, we will. But then big picture, I can choose to give in to the circumstances that are right in front of me, which sometimes you might have to, if that's what logically makes the most sense. But sometimes we don't have to give into that circumstance. We don't have to say, I'm going to forego my workout every time it's not going to work out, or we're never going to work out. It's just not going to happen. Or every time we want to cook dinner instead of go through a fast food place. I mean, I don't like loading my kids in the car, so I wouldn't do that anyways, but that's another story. So instead of giving into that, say, okay, this stinks and this is hard, and I'm going to have to probably take a couple extra minutes to get everyone set up and happy. Is that worth it for the benefit of my kids seeing me work out? Is that worth it for the benefit of me at the end of the day, knowing I'm at peace with, I did work out today because I wanted to. I had that standard for myself and I followed through. Because when we don't keep those promises to ourselves, that feeling of anxiousness and frustration and disappointment is going to build. It just builds on itself. And if we give into those short-term circumstances day after day, it's going to feel horrible a few weeks later. We're going to have this big gorilla on our back. And so I really like to encourage moms to take a step back and say, are these short-term issues and obstacles and roadblocks that I'm facing, do I need to give into them today? If not, why is it worth it in the long term? And a lot of moms I talk to, they just want to feel like themselves again, and they want to be healthy 40 years down the road. And that starts today. It starts by dealing with this short-term issue. A big thing I hear from moms is like, if I work out in the garage like you do, how do I keep my toddler from running into the street? I'm like, it's called stopping your workout and having a conversation with them for 3 months in a row until they just don't run into the street anymore. It's not going to be ideal, but just dealing with that short-term give and take. So long-term things work out. And we apply that in so many things in motherhood. We apply that with, disciplining our kids, and we apply that with like how we present ourselves as moms, right? Like not showering for 3 days in a row. We don't expect that perfection in so many other areas. So why do we expect it with our workouts? Why do we expect it with our nutrition when we totally don't expect it with so many other things? We need to apply that across the board.
Well, what's funny is because there's been times where I'm like, oh, especially when my kids were really little, like, oh my gosh, I didn't get my workout in today, or I just totally ate not really great food today to make me feel good and I feel like crap. I feel guilty for not working out and I feel guilty for eating like crap. But then I didn't do those things because I would have felt guilty for taking time away from my kids. So I love how you phrase that though, just taking a pause, taking the emotion out of it and just looking at the short term, like what's going on and how that affects you long term, big picture. Like my boys have seen me work out their whole lives. And now it's really cool to see like my 13-year-old being active and going to the gym and lifting and doing really cool workouts that now I can write for him, which he'll do sometimes because he's 13 and he's a teenager. But you're right. It's just those small little tiny habits over time. It's like the compound effect. It just adds up over time to some massive transformation and also some boundaries, as well. Because as they get older, you can let them know like, hey, this is a non-negotiable for me to move my body every day. And one thing we always kind of talk about here on the show is when you do start feeling guilt, ask those around you who you feel guilty about taking time away. Like, hey, does it make you mad when mom has to work out for 30 minutes, even if you're just working out at home? They're going to be like, no. Like, they're going to be like, I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? We put so much of that emotion into it. And when you step back, like you said, and really look at it logically and also like just straight up data, just asking them when they are able to communicate, even like with your partner, you're going to find out like, oh, I didn't need to feel guilty about anything, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing that I know a lot of the ladies listening might be struggling with, we just dropped an episode on this because I got this question from a client and I was like, this is too good not to talk about, was talking about how in different seasons of your life, your habits and routines may change, especially when you have a newborn. You're just trying to get in the flow of a routine and oh my gosh, now they're teething now, or they're going through like a little growth spurt and they're not sleeping. And you're like, there's no way I'm getting up at 5 a.m. to work out because I slept like 3 hours and the baby's still there with you. Even as, a mom of teenagers and little kids too, it's hard to stay consistent. Like we're getting ready to go into the spring and the boys are going to start back up with lacrosse and golf. So my schedule is going to change. So how do you stay consistent when your schedule and those seasons of life are constantly changing because it's ever evolving?
Yeah. Something I like to do, I don't do it weekly. I probably should. I do it more monthly, but I like to evaluate what the month looks like, what we've got changing. My husband's in the military, so he's gone all the time. And I'm like solo parenting 2 kids and running a business and trying to take care of myself, on the other side of the country from family. So same thing where it's like constant change going on, constant change. And the biggest thing I like to do is evaluate, okay, what's this next season or this next month going to look like? And where do I need to adjust my morning routine? Because we keep things really simple where it's, I get up early, I work out, I make the kids breakfast, we eat, we play, they nap, in the afternoon, my nap is my work time. Afternoon, we keep a pretty standard schedule, but I do shift things around in different seasons. So I think taking, again, a step back and evaluating what might need to change in this next season, and then focusing on making tiny little changes, one thing at a time, because if we try to overhaul it, it's not going to be sustainable. So just picking one small change. And that, if that looks like personally, when I first started working out again, in pregnancy, I was walking 7 days a week, I was doing prenatal workouts, a couple of days a week. Super active you had a baby, you're 6 weeks postpartum, recovered, not fully, but partially, and wanting to get moving again. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work out for like 10 minutes a day, 3 or 4 days a week. And that was my starting point because it was sustainable and doable and I could build from there. So I think picking one small thing that you can shift to adapt in that season or to start in that season. I think especially when we're starting new habits, it needs to be very tiny. It needs to be one thing, not two, literally one change. And you don't know how long it'll take to master it either. I just dropped an episode about this, how long it takes to form a habit. There's not really a set number. It depends on you. It depends on the habit. And so once it feels routine, then add in the next thing or then up level that habit.
Absolutely. Well, when you start a new habit, that takes a lot of brain power, right? It's not like an unconscious behavior that you don't have to think about. And as a mom, you're like, I got 20,000 tabs open in my head at any time and on my actual computer. And it's like to add on one more thing feels super overwhelming. But like you said, just one tiny small thing. When you win, you feel so much more confident. You feel so much more like successful where you're like, I can do anything. And that empowerment just allows you, like you said, once it feels not hard anymore, like, okay, maybe I'll add on, reading 30 minutes a day, or maybe I'll add on just meal prepping a little bit more, whatever that feels natural to that woman, to that mom. And that's where you build that consistency, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But it
It's the
takes
only way to build it.
But it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time, and that looks different for everybody. So, well, one more big takeaway before we wrap up this conversation, Liz. All of this sounds amazing. All of this is great. I love what you're doing. We love talking about habits here on this show. A working mom listening to this is probably like, I am super motivated to do everything Liz and Emily just talked about. But here in a couple of weeks, that motivation is going to be gone. Right. So how do you stay motivated?
Okay. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of David Goggins before, but I'm
obsessed.
Yeah. Love him. Big motivation. I quote motivation in my life for a long time, but something he teaches is called the cookie jar. And I don't refer to this for me as a cookie jar. I think I naturally do it because I've done it again since before having kids. And this is something that I don't know where I learned it, but it's been huge. And like I said, in that second postpartum journey, came to realize that it was a factor in my life in staying motivated. But he has this concept called the cookie jar, which basically is every time you experience a win in your life, I mean, not even just in health and fitness, but in any area, put it in your cookie jar. And that can be a literal physical jar that you keep where you write on pieces of paper. But I've just always kept this mental bank of wins in my life, of things I've overcome or set my mind to and accomplished, big and small. And that ranges everything from not having preeclampsia in my second pregnancy, finishing an Ironman. I used to tell myself I'm not a runner, and I hated running. I would like die running a mile. So, I mean, that's a big, big win, right? That's a huge one. But then there were also small ones. Like I made the decision in a parking lot of a pet store at the age of 15 that I was going to try out for a much more advanced club volleyball travel team than the one I had previously been a part of because it was my comfort zone. I decided to go to the harder one. That was a huge win because it started me on the path of playing Division I volleyball. So there's big wins and small wins that I can look back on. And in those moments where I'm like, I don't feel like doing it today, or this is hard, and I think I'll just give in because it's too hard for me to keep going, I can look back at those things. I can think back on those small wins and big wins that I've had. And those are, I think the ones I give examples of are fairly monumental. So small ones can be as big as I got up when my alarm got off this morning. And you can think of that as super immediate, right? A super recent win that was very immediate and very gratifying, especially if you haven't been getting up at your alarm the past 2 weeks. So keeping mental notes of those wins that you can go back on, I mean, that's one of the best ways you can self-motivate. So it proves that you're capable. It proves that you can do the hard things. And so I love using the cookie jar concept that David Goggins has. Call it what you want, but think about your wins and always remember them.
I love that example. My husband is obsessed with David Goggins too. He's always like, you can't hurt me. Like we even got the clean version of his book for my father-in-law for Christmas. So he's so awesome. He's so motivational. Yeah. Awesome. And motivation's not always going to be there. So it's giving yourself a little grace too, to be like, maybe you didn't get up with your alarm today and you're like, that's okay. Maybe my body and my mind just actually needed more rest today. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow's a new day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Liz, thank you so much for this conversation today. I've so enjoyed talking to you. I know the ladies listening today have probably been taking notes furiously as we have been chatting today. But can you let everyone know where they can connect with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me. My podcast is the Tough Love Mom podcast, like Emily said. So you can find that anywhere you listen. On Instagram, I'm at Mrs. Liz Henderson. So that should be pretty easy to spell that out. And I have a Facebook community called the Tough Love Mom Squad. Just women in there who have the same mindset and belief about what we're capable of, all being intentional about their journey, postpartum moms. So it's a great community you can come engage into.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for this conversation, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Liz, thank you so much for this conversation. I loved it so much. So enjoyed talking with you. Can't wait to come on your show very soon as well. Gang, if you were still getting that soap out of your eye, you weren't able to take some notes while Liz and I were having this conversation with you, don't worry. I got my 3 biggest takeaways that I always provide at the end of the show to help you take action. Think of this as the cliff notes if maybe you got a little distracted like I sometimes do when I listen to podcasts. So let's talk about it. Number 1, tough love. So sometimes you need tough love from a coach or an accountability partner. I provide a lot of tough love to my girls in STU. We keep it real, but I'm doing it from a place of love and a place of experience and a place of my own expertise and just going through it and being in the thick of it on my own, right? And what I've learned or what I've seen other girls have success in. But also, I love how Liz mentioned you can tough love yourself, right? Tough love yourself. So sometimes that means taking action and taking the emotion out of it, right? We are emotional beings. Sometimes when you take the emotions out, it's like, oh, I see this a little bit more clearly. I need to stop being so hard on myself and just allow yourself some grace, okay? Allow yourself some grace, not the woe is me attitude, right? Because we are stronger than that. Like we talked about, mamas can pretty much change the world. We have a lot of inner strength that we're not giving ourselves enough credit for. So sometimes you need a little extra accountability or tough love from a coach, but also you need to tough love yourself. One way I really like to do this is journaling every morning. I'm toying around with a new morning routine, and honestly, I've never been really great at journaling, just letting my thoughts just free flow. But the more I do it, the more I find things about myself. I feel a lot more freer getting things off my chest to pen to paper. So I would suggest you give that a try as well. Just writing things down, just having a free flowing morning, just setting a timer. I have to set a timer, else I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to take 10,000 years, even if it's just like 2 minutes. And if you go over, great, you can continue going on. But find ways that you can tough love yourself. And also, I know a girl and give you some tough love as a coach if you want to come join me in STU. Okay, number 2. This was a theme that came up a lot during our conversation. That was being aware of the changes and transformation in your life. So looking back, first of all, being proud of yourself. Like, look at me. Look at what I did. But also looking back and seeing what worked. Maybe what didn't work. Doing that actual data and then seeing that actual mindset transformation, okay? Seeing that mindset transformation. So when we're looking at this, we're thinking of, okay, did this time, for example, work out for me consistently? Yes, this is working out great. I have my habit triggers in place that we've talked about a ton here on Self-Transformed. And, maybe for a month it got off a little off track because I wasn't sleeping well. The baby was up a lot of times. They were going through a little, what they call it, just like a growth spurt or whatever. And now I'm feeling very emotional about it because I'm not getting a lot of sleep. Well, you can take a look at that and be like, okay, well, this was working. Okay, well, maybe that wasn't working because I wasn't getting enough sleep. And that's okay. You can always restart and reevaluate. So always being open and knowing that things are going to change. The seasons of your life are short and they are changing as well. But if you aren't evaluating what's working and what's not, looking at your mindset, looking at your emotions, taking some of that out and just looking at that pure data, that's where that transformation is going to happen. And that's where you're going to feel more open to change as well and stop being so hard on yourself. Okay. And then number 3, I loved this example from Liz. Sometimes we get caught up in the short term. Okay. I'm not able to do this. I'm not able to do that. But we talked about something called the compound effect. It's one of my favorite books. It's by the author Darren Hardy. And it's just talking about taking small little actions over time and how those short-term things can add up to long-term benefits. Okay. So working out again, just those short little habits every single day add up to consistency over time, turns into mentally and physically feeling your best. Also, hashtag P squats. If you know, if you're a member of STU or if you've listened to any of my workshops, that's a fun way that we establish new habits and do that actual short-term, long-term compound effect. Okay. So, it takes a while for a habit to become a lifestyle. Give yourself a little bit more time and grace and be open to this transformation, looking at the data, sometimes taking the emotion out. And friend, just living your life, right? You are meant to live a life where you're thriving and not merely surviving. And I want you to really think about taking care of yourself, removing that emotion around guilt a lot of times as well. A bonus tip for you, removing that emotion from guilt and just do the dang thing. Right? Just taking action every single day is going to lead to a massive transformation. That consistency, it's going to build up your confidence, friend. These new habits you have in place and the strategies that we teach is going to benefit you, not just for like a 30-day program or whatever, but for life. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Liz, thank you again for coming on the show. I will link Liz's podcast and all of her resources where you can connect with her in the show notes. Again, she is the host of the Tough Love Mom podcast. I hope you enjoyed a little tough love from me today. Hey, gang, one more final thing. I truly believe this in my whole heart. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Right? If you don't take that first step and build that energy and build that momentum towards that transformation, towards that change, nothing's going to change. And if you're happy where you are, great. If for some reason you're like, this has to change, but I don't know where to start, message me, friend, or text me the links in the show notes, and I'd love to talk to you and make sure you get your spot reserved in STU. Okay, remember, it's at selftransformu.com. Links in the show notes to join the Facebook community as well. Sending you all lots of tough love and love today, and I will see you all later this week for Habit Hack Thursday. Hey girl, real quick, before you go, if you love today's show and know your girlfriends need to hear this message too, then grab a screenshot, post it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at EmilyNichols22, because the more mamas out there hearing this message, the more empowered we'll all feel to take care of ourselves so we can pour from a full cup. Or the number one way you can thank me for this podcast is to leave a rating and review in iTunes. That way, more mamas will find the show here too. Love you and appreciate you, girlfriends. See you next time.